All right, some major developments this week in the cases of Mahmoud Khalil, a Columbia graduate student detained by ICE, and Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland father mistakenly deported to a notorious prison in El Salvador. Together, their stories have become flashpoints in a much larger struggle over who we are as a nation and who we are becoming. On Friday, an immigration judge in Louisiana ruled that Khalil, a legal U.S. resident, is eligible for deportation. Khalil was arrested last month. I can't say this enough times. He's not been accused of committing any crime. His only offense appears to have having participated in campus protests and writing against Israel's war in Gaza. Remarkably, the Trump administration has claimed that non-citizens who express views which do not comport with its own can be removed from the country. That logic is chilling, considering we have an entire constitutional amendment protecting speech. Khalil's attorneys say they plan to appeal Friday's ruling. Meanwhile, a federal judge in a separate case has temporarily blocked Khalil's deportation while it reviews whether the Trump administration has violated Khalil's constitutional rights. Important to understand that constitutional rights apply to more than just American citizens. Also on Friday, a federal judge slammed the Trump administration for failing to comply with her prior order to bring home this man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, after ICE agents arrested him and had him flown to I'm going to be charitable about this, a maximum security prison in El Salvador. It's a terrible place. Like Khalil, Garcia had no criminal record and had a previous court order that explicitly protected him from deportation to El Salvador. That didn't stop the Trump administration from arresting him and shipping him out of the country in what they now claim was an administrative error. What has followed since has been nothing short of a Kafkaesque nightmare. After multiple hearings in which government lawyers failed to provide any updates on Garcia's whereabouts, never mind his status, his whereabouts, a frustrated judge, Paula Zinnes, on Friday ordered the Justice Department to give her daily updates on efforts to bring him back. The order came just one day after the Supreme Court issued a ruling upholding Zinnes' original order directing the government to facilitate his return. But it's a big but. There was a catch. The Supreme Court justices ruled that Judge Zinnes clarify what she meant when she ordered the administration to effectuate Garcia's return, warning that the district judge, Zinnes, must consider the executive branch's authority in foreign affairs when crafting the scope of her order. It is an ambiguous ruling, to be sure. What counts as a valid effort to facilitate his return has been left unclear by the Supreme Court. Is an attempted phone call to El Salvador's leadership enough? Will token efforts carry the same weight as a serious good faith effort to secure his release? Despite the ambiguity from the Supreme Court, Judge Zinnes quickly responded by amending her order. She called on the Trump administration to take all available steps to bring Garcia home, quote, as soon as possible. She's trying to leave not too much room for interpretation here. The Supreme Court's ruling, meanwhile, was brief and it was unsigned. Now, in case you're wondering why that matters, it's another decision that's been handed down on the court's so-called shadow docket. The use of the shadow docket to hand down rulings has become increasingly common under the court's conservative majority. And here's why it's troubling. The shadow docket, also known as the emergency docket, was once reserved for either low-stakes or emergency procedural decisions. Now it's being used to make consequential rulings without the justices having to attach their names to legally dubious rulings. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson recently called out her conservative colleagues for abusing the tool in another case involving the Trump administration's deportations of Venezuelans under an 18th century wartime law. That ruling also came through the shadow docket. Referring back to Korematsu, the shameful decision that upheld Japanese internment during World War II, Jackson wrote, quote, at least when the court went off base in the past, it left a record so posterity could see how it went wrong. With more and more of our most significant rulings taking place in the shadows of our emergency docket, today's court leaves less and less of a trace. But make no mistake, we are just as wrong now as we have been in the past, with similarly devastating consequences. It just seems we're now less willing to face it, end quote. And that's the real danger, because authoritarianism doesn't usually announce itself. It creeps in through the consolidation of power and the gradual erosion of norms and the rule of law. Although, as my earlier guests have said, this time authoritarianism did announce itself. It's buoyed at the institutional levels through universities and newsrooms that capitulate, through legislatures and judges that downplay the abuses of power. And that's exactly what we saw play out this week. The conservative justices didn't flatly endorse the Trump administration's outlandish position, but it didn't firmly reject it either. They offered a shrug, please try to fix this. Another green light to delay the return of this man. And now that the court has carved out this vague legal space, the Trump administration might do the same thing to someone else. As Bradley Moss said, any one of us with whom they don't agree. Equally disturbing, this decision, this profoundly consequential decision, was issued without any attribution, depriving the public of accountability and transparency. So let's be clear. This is not about Mahmoud Khalil or Garcia. It's about all of us. As the former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance notes, the 6 conservative justices on the Supreme Court sent Donald Trump's administration a message that they are willing to let him get away with it. At a minimum, the Supreme Court has given them room to prolong Abrego Garcia's detention in El Salvador. It's wrong. And it also means that none of us are safe. If the government can spirit you out of the country before your lawyers can get to court, it's just too bad. American citizens or not, we are all vulnerable. This case and this weak ruling that doesn't firmly tell the government no is not where it ends. This is where it begins. That means it could get much, much worse as this administration continues, end quote.